Hello everyone and welcome to Art Droid 29 Productions. My name is Jean Cole and I'll be your narrator today. This is part 1 of What If Deku Was the Seance. With that intro out of the way, let's get to the story. We begin this adventure inside of an ambulance on the way to the hospital, where paramedics are doing everything they can to resurrect their young patient. Come on, don't you dare give up on me! God damn it! Hurry up with those defibrillators, we're losing him! Almost ready! Now! Clear! Clear! Man! What a rush! The patient had immediately awakened, not at all fazed about almost dying. Hey, can we stop by a drive-thru on the way? Nearly dying really makes you hungry. This was Izuku Midoriya. Now you may be wondering how he found himself in this situation. Well, to truly understand how, we need to go back to the day that changed everything. The day he unlocked his quirk. Many years ago at the playground, a 4-year-old Midoriya was playing with his friends, one of whom was Katsuki Bakugo. Then again, maybe friend wasn't the right word to call him. The blonde had just unlocked his quirk, and everyone at their daycare was ecstatic, showing him nothing but praise and support. But no one showed more praise than Midoriya, the boy eager to awaken his own quirk as well. Now at the playground, Midoriya was staring at a juice box that sat on a bench in front of him, his fingers pressed against his forehead whilst wearing an intense look of concentration. What are you doing, Deku? My mom's quirk lets her move objects with her mind. I'm seeing if I have it. Well, you look like you're gonna poop your pants. Almost there. You're trying too hard. Try doing it with just your hands before your brain explodes. Okay. The young boy stretched out both of his arms, his hands open and palms on display, both aimed at the juice box. It's not gonna work. Deku, look! Just as he had given up, Midoriya turned to see the juice box hovering mid-air. He had finally done it. He had finally gotten his quirk. Once recess was over, everyone in the boys' kindergarten class stood watching the boy move objects with his mind. However, once the show had ended, Midoriya noticed a child he didn't recognize standing in the back of the classroom. Are you new? I'm Izuku. What's your name? You can see me? Why wouldn't I? The two continued to talk. Now, in most cases, this would be normal, but for some reason, one of the teachers then knelt down next to Izuku before asking the young boy an unexpected question. Izuku, who are you talking to? What do you mean? Why are you talking to the wall, sweetheart? But I'm not, though. Don't you see him? She can't see me. No one can. The boy that Midoriya had been talking to had suddenly disappeared into thin air. Hey, where did you go? Izuku, there's no one else here. Are you okay? You don't have a fever. Come with me to the office. We'll see how long before your mother can pick you up. On the way to the office, Midoriya and the teacher walked past several trophies, children's drawings, as well as photos, one of which caught the young boy's eye. There he is! That's him! That's who I was talking to! The teacher looked at the photo the child was pointing at. It was of another kindergarten class, only the photo was old, from almost 30 years ago. As it turned out, Midoriya's quirk gave him much more than just the ability to move objects with his mind. The boy was basically a walking, talking Ouija board. What started off as seeing and talking to ghosts turned into a power most could only dream of. He could summon the spirits of the deceased to aid him, allow them to briefly possess his body, and even had the ability to project his own spirit. His quirk had only 2 weaknesses, one of which was footwear. Wearing shoes or any other kind of footwear somehow dampened his powers, which, growing up, the boy didn't mind whatsoever. The second weakness, however, became a lot more dangerous over the years. Whenever the paranormal teen had taken any alcohol or narcotics, prescribed or otherwise, they would dampen his abilities, something he unfortunately relied on too much due to the stress that came with his quirk. If he wasn't being harassed by the dead, he was being stalked and pressured by the living relatives who wanted answers or to simply speak to them again. It was all too much for the boy. He wanted nothing more than to not have these abilities. Unfortunately, the best he could do was null the pain by using narcotics to weaken himself. But alas, the stronger his quirk became, the stronger the dose needed to be. At first, it was a way to calm himself down, but soon it had become the very thing that was destroying him and those around him. What was once an innocent child stood someone who was so carefree and self-destructive that he couldn't care whether he lived or died. By the time he was 11, he had almost overdosed for the first time. But no matter how many interventions or pleas from those around him, he just couldn't stop. His quirk was destroying him, both physically and mentally. This is how Izuku had found himself where he is now, by taking an experimental black market quirk suppressor. Now here he was in a hospital bed, wanting nothing more than to be anywhere else. In bed, flipping through one of the many outdated magazines that the hospital had provided, he would be greeted by 2 visitors, one being a doctor and the other being his mother, Inko. "Oh, hey doc. Does this mean I can leave now, or what?" "Izuku, I've just got off the phone with your father, and we've decided that you won't be coming home. You can't keep doing this to yourself, which is why we're sending you to a care facility to get better." "What? You can't do that!"
"There's nothing to worry about, Midoriya. It's a great facility with lovely staff, perfectly suited for your needs."
"Mom, you can't do this to me. I'm your son." "Exactly. You're my son, and I will not sit by as you throw your life away." But, you're going!" "I've packed your things and signed all the papers. You leave tomorrow. That's final. I love you, sweetie." Inko stormed out of her son's room, fighting back tears, leaving him alone with the doctor, who proceeded to bore Midoriya with details and brochures of the facility he'd be sent to. He wasn't listening, though. He was still in shock at the fact that his mother had basically dumped him to live with strangers until he was sober. The next day, he had arrived at the facility.
"I understand the situation isn't exactly ideal for you, but I hope you realize that this is for your own good."
"I've heard it all before, Doc." Once Midoriya had arrived at his room, the doctor made sure to give him one last piece of wisdom before leaving.
"I'm going to be blunt with you, Midoriya. What we're doing here, this isn't a cure for your illness. This is a detox. We're here to help you get all that filth out of your body. It's your job to make sure it stays out. You have a second chance here. Take care. I'll be seeing you tomorrow morning for our first session."
Once alone in his room, the young addict would attempt to pry his window open, only to have no luck whatsoever. If his quirk wasn't heavily hindered, he could use his telekinesis to blow the wall down. But seeing as that wasn't the case, he'd have to make do for the time being and simply bide his time. A few days would pass and Midoriya was on his way back to his room after one of his group therapy sessions. Only on the way, he caught a glimpse of his next-door neighbor, whose door was left slightly open. A mature white-haired woman sat in her bed, briefly making eye contact with Midoriya before giving him a slight wave. Unfortunately, Midoriya didn't return the favor. Instead, he brushed her off and stormed into his room before diving into his bed, hoping to sleep the rest of the day off. Again, unfortunately, the staff would not let that happen. "Come on, Midoriya. You can't be in your room all day. Let's go take a trip to the rec room." "No thanks." "That wasn't a suggestion, young man. Come on." "Ugh, fine." Upon arriving at the recreation room, Midoriya noticed a familiar face sitting at a small table on her own, with a domino set in front of her. "Care to join me?" "I don't really know how to play. I'll pass." "Sit. I'll show you." "I'm not exactly good company." "Do you see me complaining?"
Fair enough.
Midoriya sat in the chair opposite of the woman before she introduced herself. "I'm Rei."
Izuku.
Months had passed, and from that day on, Midoriya and Rei had formed a connection. The boy had felt comfortable enough to vent to her, and she in turn felt comfortable enough to comfort him if he needed, forming a relationship similar to a mother and son, which saddened Midoriya upon discovering Rei was a mother whose children would not visit her often. Her youngest son, who was around Midoriya's age, hadn't even visited her once, nor did he write her. Although Midoriya's feelings didn't change even after discovering what Rei had done. The cleaner Midoriya had gotten, the stronger his quirk had become. But thanks to all the counseling, he had learned to ignore the voices of the spirits who would haunt him. Unfortunately, one day his progress had almost been for nothing. After spending months not hearing anything from his family, he had received a letter from his mother that absolutely broke him. From her room, Rei could hear violent sounds coming from Midoriya's room. Her motherly instincts kicked in and she immediately went to see what was wrong. What greeted her was the sight of Midoriya's room trashed, along with the boy lying in a fetal position, crying with the letter by his feet. "Izuku, what's wrong?" She hadn't gotten a response from the boy, but knowing what might have set him off, she picked up the letter and began to read what it said. "Izuku, I'm sorry that your father and I have not reached out to you for so long. It breaks my heart to see you doing everything in your power to destroy yourself, which is why it pains us to make this choice. When your time at the hospital ends, we don't want you to come back home. Oh, Izuku." Rei held the boy tight, letting him cry into her shoulder until he fell asleep from exhaustion. This is where we shall leave the story for now. If you enjoyed the episode, please feel free to like and share. It really means a lot to the channel. Also, if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe so that you can keep up to date with the future uploads. Thank you all for listening and have a great day.